So this year's kind of unique in that there seem to be a lot of people that are calling for the rapture to be on September 23rd of 2025 or maybe leading up to it. Some are doing it more overtly than others, and some are making the argument and attempting to dodge accountability by saying what they really want to say. It's almost like they haven't taken an argumentative writing course where you state your thesis like the sky is green, and then you take present your evidence for your argument. Some are just presenting the evidence and then basically saying, yeah, but I'm not saying the rapture is going to take place. I'm going to say right off the bat, there's a low probability this year for it. But I will say this, that at least they finally picked up on the whole Yom Teruah thing. Usually the watch people like to dodge that feast all together and come up with their own ideas, but this year it seems interesting because they have sort of converged on it, and some of it's because of bad data. But yeah, I don't really get on anybody that wants to take the timeline out of the picture. And if you want to, because I've cited over a dozen sources that points to Yom Teruah being the fulfillment of the last trumpet. So you don't need the timeline, but what the timeline does is it basically says it's this one, and that's the argument that they are making. So I got a bunch of clips here. I'm going to play them, and then I'm going to make some comments after it. So let's look at the first one.
And if our understanding of Isaiah 61 verses 1 and 2 is correct, then the tribulation will begin sometime this fall. There's a link to this video here if you're interested in learning more about the year of Jubilee and the start of the tribulation in 2025.
Okay, so we're starting off with George from Return of the King. Now this guy's got a bunch of wacky ideas, and he's taken some, not get into all of the madness, but the one data point that is up on the screen is actually a bad data point, and it's something that the rest of these guys are pretty much using. And that is that the crucifixion, according to them, took place on 32 AD. This is a bad year, and I have done a video on this. I've got probably less than 30 public videos up on my channel right now, so it shouldn't be too hard for you to find that if you want to get a much deeper dive into it. But the problem with it is Passover landed on a Monday, so you don't get 3 days and 3 nights from Monday to Sunday morning. The math doesn't math right there. Now, I saw one person make an argument that when we transitioned from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, that's where we lost those days, and that is absolutely false. If you go to 1582, October 1582, you can see clearly where they shaved off the 10 days. So they went from October 5th, 1582, which was a Thursday, to Friday, October 15th, 1582. So I think I got the 1582 right. But anyway, the thing is, we didn't lose the days of the week. So his argument is just invalid. And here you can see this. If we go to, say, a Orthodox church, the church split. And there are some people that don't follow the Gregorian calendar. They still follow the original Julian calendar. And so they're off by about 13 days. And so let's take a look at an example of that and see what day they think that it is. So here we are at the Holy Trinity Russian Orthodox Church. I'm sure there's others because over the years you could see where some people didn't take on the Gregorian calendar right off the bat, and so they ended up having to shave 11, 12, 13 days off. And that's the situation here, whereas if they converted over, then that's what they'd have to do. And so they have us on Sunday, July 27th, 2025. Their calendar is July 14th of 2025. But notice it's Sunday for both of them. They don't have, Friday, July 14th here. So yes, the argument that we lost a couple of days in the days of the week is false.
Part 2. I believe this sign completes with the appearance of the blood moon over Israel and Jerusalem. If that's the case, then I believe the rapture will occur sometime starting with this blood moon and before the start of the tribulation.
Now, I wanted to present this clip simply because he says what he believes, and that's great. At least he's saying it, where some of these other people aren't. But the point is that I'm trying to make is What if you tell people that Yeshua was real and he died for your sins and then all you have to do is believe? And then you say something like this and it doesn't happen. How does that impact your testimony as far as belief goes? That's the point I really want to make is once we get past September 23rd, what if unbelievers are looking at this content and they're like, well, if this didn't happen, then what about this whole Yeshua guy and believing on him? I think it's a detriment to the testimony that people have. And that's probably why they shouldn't do it unless they really know without a shadow of a doubt that God is speaking to them or they have enough evidence to back it up. But in this case, they don't. And he uses a lot of just weird, wacky things to come up to his conclusions. And it's just, to me, I think it's devastating to the testimony of the church.
If you go 1,260 days from that date, from the midpoint, it takes you to Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, which is September 15th/16th. And the reason I put slash is because a Jewish day starts on the evening prior. So if you're going to say September 15th, the evening of September 15th is the Jewish day of September 16th. It's the beginning of that day. So that's why I put the slash there.
So here is the calendar that Tyler is using. And if you'll notice, he said the 15th and the 16th, and it's actually the 14th and the 15th of September. So he's actually off by a day. So anyway, this was on his live stream a few days ago, and basically I had to go and see which calendar he was actually using. And the thing is, he puts the Yom Kippur dates on there, the 14th through the 16th, except we just saw that it was only the evening of the 14th and the day of the 15th. It's not 2 days. Actually, the whole 2-day thing, like we see here with Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah, the 22nd through the 24th, it's the first day of the 7th month. This addition and making holidays 2 days long is because they're using a calendar called the Hillel 2 calendar. It's not the calendar that was in use when Yeshua walked the earth. So, but anyway, his whole argument is basically like 2025. Look at how much evidence we have for 2025. I'm not saying the rapture's 2025. I'm just saying it's not 2026 and can't be 2027 because that's well past 2032, and so it has to be 2025, but I'm not saying that. I mean, that's really what it's dodging accountability. And I think it's also intellectually dishonest to put the Yom Kippur dates there and add an extra day to it so it fits what his math, because obviously you could look at the calendar and notice that it did not show the 16th.
Because to me, I think this gives some credence to 1290 being the first count, because of the fact of if you do it that way, all of these things line up perfectly. You get a 1290, you get a 1260, and you get a 1335, and it all fits absolutely perfectly. And you get Feast of Trumpets, you get Passover, you get Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, and you get Hanukkah, Feast of Dedication. So to me, that's one reason right there. That's like, whoa, okay, if you plug in 1290 as the first half, look what happens.
Now, there's other places in his video where he basically goes through a bunch of mental gymnastics to basically make the point that he thinks the 1,260 days is at the second half and the 1,290 is the beginning. But if we go to Daniel 12 and just read it for what it says, and that's another thing that he does is he takes out all the words that don't actually exist in the Hebrew, but they're inserted in the English to give clarity. And from the time the daily is taken away, what is it talking about, really? And the abomination of desolation is set up. 1,290 days. Blessed he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days. Now, his timeline basically has this 1,335 days from the middle to the end. Why did you just divorce it from verse 11 here? If the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. To what? What? Till the end? So if verse 11 is from the middle to the end, and you have implied that verse 12 is from the middle to the end, why are you moving it? Oh, that's right. It's because he wants it to fall on Passover 1,290 days after essentially Yom Teruah. The thing is, there's nothing to suggest that that is even a thing, that the abomination of desolation happens on Passover. So that's basic speculation at best as far as that goes. But here's the thing that gets me. It's not even Passover. I mean, can we get the terms right? Passover is on the 14th day of the first month. The next day is unleavened bread. And unleavened bread goes for 7 days. Yes, I realize if you go to the Hebrew calendar, the current one that they use, they say Passover 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But it's actually Passover and then the days of unleavened bread. But I guess I'm just being a stickler here. Moving on.
And I know, I'm the one who has to face the ire if I'm wrong. And first of all, I'm going to say, am I guaranteeing it? No, I'm not guaranteeing it because I'm not God. But I'm the one who will face the ire if we're here past September. And I'm willing to do that because I think the events are lined up and I think we're there. I think we're there.
Do you see how you can communicate things without actually saying it? So, yeah, that's probably why people might be a tad miffed when October rolls around and everybody's still here, because you've essentially come on here and hyped up the idea that the rapture is going to be most likely in September, but I didn't really say that, just inferred it, suggested it. I mean, that's the whole point of you driving down to the river and sitting in your car and hyping things up.
This is a proposed timeline for a 2025 rapture.
I didn't realize Steven Sewell was still online making content, but his timeline popped up and I just had to take a look at it to see. I mean, after all, when I ripped apart his original alpha to omega timeline back in April of 2017, I just was like done with it. Oh, and all his plagiarism that he did back then. But yeah, and this wasn't even his timeline. This was originally Brenda Weltner's timeline because she messaged me and she was trying to get me on board. And I'm like, no, go away.
Why wouldn't this timeline give you hope? That's my question.
Because my hope is not in a timeline from somebody who has consistently been wrong for nearly a decade.
Because that's the whole reason I've spent all this time putting it out there for you to look at.
Are you sure there's not another reason, like donations? But Hamrick, he doesn't have a link to his PayPal account in the description, so how is he getting donations? You're right. I apologize. It's on his website.
It's not about trying to guess dates, folks. It never has been.
So if it's not about guessing dates, then why is it for nearly a decade that's what you've been doing? I'm confused on that matter. You know what? I think at this point we need to hear from 2017 Hamrick C. This was a week before the alignment. The numbers worked out absolutely perfect. That's why when people have these elaborate charts showing how perfect their timelines are, that I don't pay any attention to them. Because the one thing about my life, God has shown me prophetically things to take place, is that God's word is true. The thing is, God does not ever tell me what his timing is. I've never, there's only once I've known when his timing was, and then it really wasn't a good example of his timing. I mean, so we just know that it's going to happen. We don't know when, we don't know how. It's not our job to figure it out. Our job is, as a believer, is to simply believe. That's all we have to do, is just believe. And yet everybody's got to kind of have everything figured out. And every time they do, they're wrong. Well, there you have it. I agree with me from 2017 that doing these timelines, they're going to fail because they're not using the correct calendars. Even with Torah calendar being that much closer and better, it's still not accurate. And there have been years where Torah calendar will start the year. Here it is, first month, calculated equinox and all that kind of stuff, and I go and I look and people in Israel saying, well, the barley is not ripe yet because the actual calendar is observational. Well, if you're not in the land, then you need a calendar that is built on calculations, and that's the calendar that Tyler was using. That's why it says diaspora on it. It is based on calculations. It's also, they know that it's off, which is why they have extended some of the holidays, the feasts, out 2 days, just so that they make sure. So really Orthodox Jews will celebrate Passover on 2 days. They'll do the Passover Seder twice, Passover 1, Passover 2, or whatever. And then, yeah. So anyway, the thing is, I think it's arrogant because if you don't study some of the idioms associated with Yom Teruah, like for example, it is Yom HaKaseh, the hidden day. It is hidden. You're not going to find it. It's arrogant to think that you can just go ahead and grab some dates and just squeeze in the 25, 50 days, and you're like, hey, there it is. That's what they did in 2014, except they thought it was 1,260, 1,260. But it fit on Torah calendar from Yom Teruah to Atonement. And I will say, I do agree with the rapture, the last trump happening on Yom Teruah, and then tribulation, and then 7 years later on Atonement, Yeshua will return. But you got to assume there's a lot of things that take place on the earth. I mean, does a day still equal 24 hours? I'm thinking of a verse that says something about that the earth will reel to and fro like a drunkard. I think in Revelation it talks about striking the moon and the sun, and there's a third of the day that's gone and a third of the night that's gone. Is that literally taking it down from 24 hours to say something like 18 hours? So that would actually mess up your timeline as you have it, because the days, I mean, you don't know. You can't base on what's going on now with what's going on during the tribulation. I mean, if you read that book, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in there. And so is it possible that if there's an asteroid that smacks into the earth, that maybe it speeds up the rotation? I mean, these are little things to think about. But the thing is, I don't think that these people are smart enough to outsmart God. It's just maybe an opinion that I have, but yeah.